So I'll probably kick off with the main aspect of what we're going to be talking about today. What was really clear from, I'll do an introduction in a minute, what was really clear from some of the questions that Vanessa sent over earlier was that this is a time, we're living in some weird times, and a lot of what I'm being asked probably on a daily basis from other organisations and companies is that level of anxiety that we're currently undergoing, that level of anxiousness that people are experiencing, which is probably unprecedented. A lot of people suffer from anxiety anyway, and what's happened over the last sort of 3 to 4, 6 weeks, depending on when you first started thinking about it or hearing about it, that level of anxiety, that level of anxiousness has gone up quite a lot in society, and we're seeing that very much in all forms of society. Adults, children, the elderly have all got different levels of anxiety to what they would be having normally. So we're really going to, I thought I'd use today's session to talk quite a bit about anxiety, quite a bit about stress, but we're going to kick off with why we have mental health in the first place, and why Vanessa and Charlotte thought it was a good thing for me to talk today about your mental health, and how you can look after it, how you can make it stronger, how you can be more resilient to some of the stuff that's going on at the moment. So who am I? My name's Simon Nichols. You probably saw the video that I recorded yesterday. I work for a company called Thrive. Very difficult to say when sometimes I sound a bit like I can't remember his name now, the guy off of the television, Jonathan Wass. So sometimes I mispronounce my th. So having a company that begins with TH was a really bad idea. However, Thrive is my mental health and wellbeing company. I did a champions course for Transitions UK. I'm also a mentor, by the way, of Transitions UK, which is a great honour for me. Hopefully there'll be a few people on the chat who have met me before, and yeah, so I'm very supportive of everything that Transitions UK are doing, and I'm really pleased to be here. I'm obviously very honoured to be asked. As I said, my name's Simon Nichols. Prior to being a mental health first aid instructor, I was in sales and marketing, so that doesn't really sort of portray what a normal mental health first aid instructor's background is. But in my case, I had a lived experience. I suffered from depression for about a year in 2016, and that's what's actually pushed me forward into becoming a mental health first aid instructor. So as I said, I'm really pleased to be here, and I'm really pleased to be doing this Facebook Live with you guys. Mitchell just said he's not going to be able to attend. That's no problem. Right, okay, so mental health. One of the questions that we always get asked as mental health first aid instructors is what is mental health? Because for a lot of people, mental health, even the words mental, start to conjure up different things inside their head. This obviously came about from what we used to call mental hospitals, mental asylums. It was always a connotation, always associated with something that was not good. So when we started to use mental health in a positive way, maybe 10, 15 years ago, although it just seems to have started to catch on in the last 3 to 4 years. When we talk about mental health, we look at it exactly the same way that we have physical health. So nobody bats an eyelid, nobody worries about talking about their physical health. I'm physically well, I'm able to walk, I'm able to run, I'm able to go on a bike, I eat healthily, I get plenty of sleep, I don't drink too much alcohol, don't take in too much caffeine, don't smoke too much. I'm living a healthy lifestyle. Now, for many years, mental health, i.e. the strength up here, was pretty much ignored. It wasn't actually sort of thought about in the same way. Now, when we start to talk about mental health first aid as well, which is some new words. Hopefully, I'll be teaching you over the next 45 minutes or so. We've started to see a shift in the way people think about their mental health in exactly the same way as they would think about their physical health, i.e., they want to look after it, they want to protect it, they want to make sure that it's as strong as it can be. One of the words I love using is mental strength. You might see it behind me on my poster there, and it might be strange to a lot of you to say, well, how can I make myself mentally better? How can I make myself mentally stronger? Well, we'll talk about that over the next 45 minutes. But for the most part, I want to really focus on what is mental health. What is your mental health? Because the most important thing to remember is no matter who you are, where you are, who you're looking after, what stage you are in your career, in your life, you are the most important person. Okay, without you, nothing else works. Okay, so you need to remember that no matter what happens, you've got to look after yourself. When we do it in the training courses, I talk about it putting on your oxygen mask. Okay, making sure that you're looked after. Now, the only way that you can start to do that is to recognize that you have mental health. Now, whether you have good mental health, poor mental health is irrelevant at this point, because you need to just recognize that you've got mental health in the first place. So what do we mean by mental health? It's how we feel and how we think and how we behave. So whereas our physical health is whether or not we can run up some stairs, whether or not we can go on a bike ride, whether or not we can swim 100 meters, our mental health is governed by the fact that we have to go up into our mind. We have to look at the stuff that we're thinking about. But it's more fundamental than that. It's about how we cope with things. And I know we've got some questions later that talks about how do I cope. Well, that's one of the key things that we need to think about when we're starting to make ourselves mentally strong. We need to be thinking. We need to be looking at how we're thinking and what those thoughts and what that behavior is actually doing to ourselves. And we can start to recognize positive and negative thinking. And I'm sure many people on the call will know what negative thinking is. It's where you start to we call it catastrophizing or catastrophe, whereby we always think the worst is going to happen, and a lot of anxiety stems from within our own mindset. And I'll talk to you a little bit about stress and anxiety later. Because it's the way that we think and the way that we feel, it's also the way that we see ourselves. Okay, because we project out of our mind and look back at ourselves, and it's that influence that we have on our own thoughts and feelings that's really, I guess, difficult for us to manage sometimes, because for a lot of people it can appear quite bleak. You know, the future, now, what's happened in the past, and we tend to dwell on a lot of negative things that go on in our life, where in actual fact what we should be doing is viewing the positive and start to bring the good in the world into our thoughts and feelings. Mental strength is how we deal with those things. Okay, I've talked about coping, but how do we actually deal with those thoughts? How do we make sure that those thoughts don't come back? How do we build up a protection around the way that we're thinking, so that we can actually start to feel better about ourselves and better about stuff going on in the future as well? Another thing that it affects is our self-confidence and self-esteem, insofar as the way that we can actually project ourselves. A lot of people feel, especially when they're feeling anxious, what they want to do is they want to curl up, they want to stay inside, they don't want to project themselves. They haven't got the confidence, or they feel that they haven't got the confidence to sometimes even leave the house, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But as I say, the stronger we can build ourselves up mentally, the better we can start to have that self-confidence in ourselves, to believe in ourselves, which is a really important thing, because you've got to believe in yourself. I talked about stress, and we're going to be talking about stress and anxiety because they are two different things. And I want you to think about stress different to anxiety if you can. I'll talk to you about why we have both of them shortly, but imagine, if you will, stress. Stress tends to be external. It tends to be the stuff that's coming at us. Social media, other people's opinions, your own thoughts and feelings, the stuff that's coming in, financial worries, worries about your health, and we'll talk obviously a lot about that later in terms of what's going on. But stress appears mostly from the outside, and we call it pressure, or tension as well is another word, because actually stress, like anxiety, small amounts is actually good for you. It spurs you on, it drives you forward. So we've got to think differently about why we're being stressed, why we're stressed out, and why we're feeling anxious, and what that overwhelming feeling of anxiety does to us. Because long term, it can actually start to damage us. If we undergo pressure or tension or stress for a long period of time, as in anxiety, it can start to do actual physical damage. So the stronger we are mentally, not only in terms of keeping our physical health, but as we start to look at our mental health, you'll see that the two will actually start to affect each other. As you start to get mentally stronger, your physical strength actually increases as well. Two thoughts that I'd like you to take away from this first section. We all have mental health. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad word. Okay, mental health is everything that we took. Our bodies will only work when our minds are working. What we've got to do is we've got to clear that mind sometimes. We've got to get rid of those negative thoughts. Okay, because we all have mental health. It's the only reason I'm here talking to you today. Allows me to stand up, talk. I do have trouble sometimes doing both at the same time. That's why I'm sitting down. But that's the whole point of what goes on in our mind. Our brain is the control center of the body. Okay, so number one, we all have mental health. Number two, there is no health without mental health. Okay, two really important sayings there. We all have mental health, and there is no health without mental health. Because if this isn't working, you might as well just stay sitting on the sofa, because your body will start to think and feel the same way that your thoughts. If you remember when you wake up in the morning and suddenly it's you open the curtains, it's a great day, you had a fantastic night's sleep, haven't got much on for the day, you know the sun's going to be shining, and you wake up and you feel really positive. You think, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a really good day. You go downstairs, you've got enough of your favourite cereal, you've got some orange juice. Oh wow, it's absolutely brilliant. And you can actually feel yourself bouncing, getting bigger, bouncing up. And the next morning, you could just wake up and you didn't have a very good night's sleep. You run out of your favourite cereal. There's no orange juice. It's a bit dreary outside. It's a bit raining. And you actually start to feel yourself, I'm just going to go to bed for another half an hour. And you actually start to feel yourself withdraw. And that's your mind making your body think that it's actually producing in on itself. So it's very true that the way that you think about yourself, the way you think about other people, that level of positivity can really start to have an effect on your physical body, but certainly on your mental health as well. One thing to remember around anxiety, and we will cover this off in the questions later, and the same thing around stress, is that yes, you can control it. You can reduce it. You can make your thoughts go away. Maybe not for a long time, maybe not forever, but you can actually start to do something about it. Hopefully what you'll find out from today, because it's fairly upbeat, I know it's a really a very strange time out there. But hopefully what I'll start to show you is ways that you can actually start to make yourself feel better. Okay, so I don't think there's any questions at this moment. I'm just going to double check. No, brilliant. So we'll move on to actually what is stress and what is anxiety, okay, because they are two slightly different things. Now, what you've got to remember around stress from the first thing is stress is a good thing, okay? If you are in a building at the moment, if you've ever been in a church, if you've ever been anywhere with structures, with walls, what is holding those church archways together, what is holding these steel beams is stress. It's what actually supports buildings, and it can actually support us. The problem is when there's too much stress. Do you remember when I said about all this stuff coming in? Okay, the way that I like to think about it is, if you can imagine, and let's go to, we're going around the globe now. We're going to San Francisco. We know that there's earthquakes in San Francisco, and we know that the buildings are made to bend. Okay, and what's going on with the buildings over there? Well, there's pressure. There's from the earth shaking. There's wind, maybe. There's rain, and all these buildings are designed to bend, designed to move. Okay. Now the same thing is with us. If we've got lots of stuff going on, now let's just take a normal day as normal has started to come into our lives now. When we can only go out for an hour, we're stuck in the house, we're unsure about what's going to happen next week. Maybe our jobs have stopped. However, whatever's going on, there's stuff coming at us. Okay, and what we're doing is we're starting to bend. Okay, we're starting to bend and sway. Now the thing with this stuff, stress, let's call it, all the stuff that's coming in, is if we don't do anything about it, what's going to happen is we keep bending. All right, and we're like a building. We're put into this position, and if you've ever tried to bend over, it takes a bit of time to get back to normal. But if you can work out how you can get back to normal, if you can take away some of that influence, that outside stuff, then you can start to come back to the center. If we stay in that state of bend without doing anything about it, same as a building, what might happen for a period of time is a crack would appear down here. And what happens in a crack, if there's a crack in a building, then there's something that we need to do about it. Okay, we need to fix the crack, because if we don't fix the crack, what's going to happen is something's going to break. And that's what we talk about when we're talking about bend, crack, break. And the same with us. With all the stress that's coming in, there's stuff that we can do about it. We call them coping strategies, coping mechanisms. You might already have some, and we'll talk a little bit about them later. But what we need to realize is that we can, if with the bend, with all the stuff that's coming in, if we can manage that, if we can understand what that is, then we can come back to the center. If something cracks, we might need a bit of help. If that had happened to a wall or a building, we'd get some builders in and they'd put some cement over it and they'd make it better. If something breaks, if the stress is too much, too constant, too just keeps coming at you in waves, then you might need some help. If a wall breaks, it might need building up from the foundations, and then the bricks and the cement, and finally the top of the wall. It's the same with us. Okay, if we bend too much and we crack and we break, we need help getting back. And that's the thing to think about when we talk about when you're under stress. You're feeling under stress. Anxiety is different, because anxiety, while having very similar feelings and thought processes to stress, it's mostly from within. It's how we think about ourselves. It's how we think about situations. To get a little bit technical, they're called common cognitive thought distortions. Some of you might have heard of cognitive behavior therapy, CBT. Now, what that tries to do, cognitive is just thinking, the mind. Behavior, as you say, is the way that we act around things. And distortion is it's slightly changed. So some of the common ones that we have, and there's 11 common thought distortions. One of the ones is the mind reader trick. I'm sure you've all thought about having a conversation with someone, and you might be a friend, your best friend, and you go, right, I'm going to go and have a chat. Let's have a chat with Stephen. So I'm going to go and have a chat with Stephen. Last time I had a chat with Stephen, he wasn't very nice to me. He didn't say some very nice things, and I'm not sure I want to go and have a chat with Stephen, because the last time, if I go and have a chat with Stephen now and I say the wrong thing, Stephen's not going to be very kind to me. I don't think I'm going to go and talk to Stephen. So we've already had the conversation in our head up here. This thing's on 24/7. We've mind read that Stephen might not be very nice to us, and so we don't do something in the first place. It's a very common cognitive thought distortion. But don't worry too much about the terminology. It's just the way that we're thinking. Because anxiety comes from within, it's not so much the stuff that's coming at us. It's about the stuff that we're thinking about. And it's about the overthinking. Is a really good way to think about it. It's we think about stuff too much. Now, I said at the beginning that stress management and anxiety were effectively the same things, because they were both born out of the fact that we're humans. When we were back in the Dark Ages, way before that, after the dinosaurs, but before all the other stuff came about, society, we were Neanderthals. We were cavemen and cavewomen. And what anxiety does, and we can think of anxiety in a different way as well. We think about it as butterflies in your tummy. That sort of and you might have heard the mention of the word gut feeling. I'm a little bit anxious about that. I'm not sure if that's a good thing to do. And stress, we talk about the flight and the fight and the freeze mechanism. Am I scared of something? In which case, am I going to run away from it? The flight. I might be scared of something, but I'm pretty sure that I'd be able to fight it. I'll be able to overcome the problem. Or am I just so scared of something that I'm just frozen to the spot? So we've got the fight, the flight, and the freeze mechanism. And what that also comes around is how it affects our anxiety. We start to feel anxious about something. If you remember a time when you were feeling anxious, not necessarily to do with anything that was going on at the moment, but just a feeling of maybe you were going to meet someone new for the first time, or maybe you were going to sit a really important exam, or a job interview, or coming onto the Transitions UK program, and you didn't really know anybody. How did you feel? You probably felt as though, maybe a bit sweaty, a bit tingly. You probably, wringing your hands. And the idea being is because you were apprehensive. You weren't sure what was going to happen. You weren't sure whether you needed to run away or whether you were going to go in and fight it. So when we talk about the fight, flight, and freeze, that's how we talk about the anxiety and the stress, and that's actually really important, because what it's doing, if you've all heard of neurotransmitters, the bits in the brain that fire off all the stuff, those neurotransmitters, whenever we see something, and here's a little fact for you, we make a decision 1/16,000,000th of a second. Okay, that's how fast our human brain is, and that's how we've evolved much more than when we were cavemen and cavewomen. So 1/16,000,000th of a second, we decide if something's going to be dangerous. With all of that computation, it's a big computer in our head, with all of that stuff going on, all at a time, the neurotransmitters firing. I think we make something like 2,000 decisions every minute. 2,000 decisions. I'm going to pick up this cup. That's a decision. I'm putting it down. That's another decision. My eyes moved left. My eyes moved right. I'm waving. All those things are decisions that our bodies are making. So when you start to put all of that together, what happens with anxiety and with stress is it starts to release chemicals. The neurotransmitters, the brain signals, start to release chemicals into your body. They start to release something called dopamine, which is the fun, which is the happy feeling that we get when we get a nice Facebook like. It starts to produce adrenaline. Adrenaline's when we, if anyone's been on a roller coaster, it's that fun feeling that you get just before you get onto the roller coaster, and you're slightly shaky because you're not sure what's going to happen. And we call people adrenaline junkies because they actually go and put themselves into a position where that they can feel that adrenaline rush through their body. So there's also another one which is cortisone. Okay, which is what it's called the pain inhibitor. It's so you can't feel pain. Now this is all designed back in the day when we were cavemen. We turned a corner, there's a saber-toothed tiger there. Now I'm a big, strong caveman, and I'm going to go and kill that saber-toothed tiger because I want some fur so I can make myself some clothes. I want some meat so I can survive. And I'm big and strong because I've had loads of sleep. I'm doing lots of exercise and I'm eating healthily. And so I go into my fight mode. So all my adrenaline starts to pump through my body. All of my muscles get really big. The cortisone comes in because it sort of protects me, doesn't want me to get hurt. And even if I do get hurt, it wants me to carry on fighting. And what happens is all of those chemicals gets released into my bloodstream, goes around, my heart beats faster, all of my muscles are on edge, and I go into the fight mode. If I turned around that corner and that saber-toothed tiger was looking right at me and it started to run, I would probably run as well. That's when my flight mechanism comes in. I'm running away. And the reason I'm running away is because I want to survive. I want to survive to tomorrow, because that's what we do. That's what our whole brain is geared up, is to make us survive. So I'm running away. What's happened in my brain is that's 1/60 millionth of a second is bang, 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 bang. And it's dropped a load of adrenaline into all my muscles. I could probably just stand back and watch my legs power me away because it's going to push everything down into my muscles. Because it wants to keep us alive. When I'm far enough away from danger, or when I've killed the saber-toothed tiger, that's when the dopamine is going to get released, and that flushes out. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel, oh yes, I've overcome this battle. I've overcome this challenge. Oh, I got away. And it starts to flush out all of the chemicals that have made us feel that way. So we can start to see that the way that we're feeling and the way that we're thinking is not a new thing. It's been passed down from generation to generation, all the way back to our ancestors, the very first people that walked on the earth. So we can start to see it still wants to keep us alive today. So what do we do in terms of putting that into practice? What can we do that can actually help us? If we switch to today, we're the 7th of April, we're in some very unusual times with what's going on in the world at the moment. Should we feel anxious? Of course we should. We're being told to stay indoors, we're being told to look after ourselves, we're being told to look after other people, and we're seeing horrible things on lots of different platforms. That's our body, our mind, telling us to survive. It doesn't want to catch COVID-19. It doesn't want to go into hospital. What it wants to do is survive. And that's the reason that for a lot of us, and it's not just you guys, it's a lot of adults as well. It's a lot of people around the world are feeling anxious. They're feeling that butterflies in their tummy. their bodies are pumping with adrenaline. If you go out for one of your exercise walks, or you go out to get some shopping, you'll see that people are now avoiding each other. They're avoiding each other because their anxiety, their brains are telling them that I don't want to get poorly. So how do we start to feel better, not only in normal times, but how do we start to feel better now? Well, there's lots and lots of things that we can start to do. The reason that the anxiety wells up, the reason that we have those thought processes that I talked about earlier, is because we are starting to have a busy mind. We're filling our mind up with everything that's going on, especially social media and Facebook and the news and the BBC News app and everything that's coming in, everything's piling in. We also were told to use the word social distancing, which is a very unusual way of describing what we've been doing. And the World Health Organization, which is a fantastic resource if you want to get the facts about what's going on, WHO, you might have seen it on the news. The World Health Organization have actually asked for people to use physical distancing, not the word social distancing, because we liken the word social to our friends, social media, social gatherings, and what we really wanted to do was not social anymore, but we just wanted to be physically apart. So there's a good tip straight away. Think of it as about physical distancing, because we're just staying apart from each other, just so we're able to minimize the risks of ourselves, and more importantly our vulnerable, our grandparents, our parents, because it's those are the ones that we're starting to keep safe. Okay, we're starting to make sure that they survive. So what can we do? And I'm gonna just very quickly look at one of the questions that came through early, because it's quite a good time for that. And someone asked the question: is anxiety something that you can get over? Yes, 100%. Now, whether you can do it on your own is a different matter. There are lots of techniques you can do. If you do need help, then you've got a fantastic team in Transitions UK. Vanessa, Charlotte, your mentors, all can give you, we call it signposting. We call it resources that we can give you, both physical resources that I'm going to do in a moment, but also online resources, and just talking to someone sometimes helps it. So can I get over my anxiety? Yes, because anxiety, as we talked about, is up here. The way that we can start to get rid of it is to empty the mind, because while this is full, while this is being bombarded with all the stuff externally, the stress, and all the stuff internally, my anxiety, while I've got that busy brain going out, what if, what's the worst that could happen? Oh, that's the worst that could happen. If we keep thinking along those lines, that anxiety will start to, and people talk about anxiety as eating them alive, and it really is that physical feeling of discomfort. So what we've got to start to do is to, and we'll be talking a little bit later about mindfulness, and we're talking a bit about meditation, but more importantly, we're talking about doing stuff, having activities that actually start to empty or clear what's going on up there. So good news is that yes, we can overcome anxiety. Now the second question that I thought was fantastic is, and I'll read it out if it's okay: does anyone ever get scared that after the lockdown they will be too anxious to leave the house again? Now I think that's a really important question, because a lot of people have said, what's it going to be like? Now at the moment, our governments don't know, China doesn't know, France, Spain, Italy, the UK, we don't know what it's going to be like. Now the good thing around that, and we talk about this as having a circle of control, okay? It's called the circle of control. Now If you're in the circle of control, you can control it. That's why it's called the circle of control. I'm frozen on my screen. I look like I'm moving, Catherine. I'll carry on as though I am. It might just be you. So we talk about the circle of control. Again, because I'm back. Brilliant. Sorry about that. I've had a fantastic connection all day, but I'll make sure that I keep an eye on that. But the signal looks strong. Yeah. So the circle of control. Everything in that circle of control we can control. Now, if governments and heads of state don't know what's going on, how are we as mere humans, as mere Transitions UK individuals meant to know what's going on? So the key thing is, yes, I think when we do get back to normal, I think things will have changed, but I think they'll probably have changed in some ways for the better, because what we're seeing now is a lot of people thinking about stuff, but not thinking about it in a negative way, thinking about stuff in a positive way. I think people will be very afraid at the beginning. I think they'll be afraid to go back out and talk to people. But I think, like anything, at time we'll start to heal that. Time will start to make it easier for us again. And again, that goes back to, what can I change and what can't I change? Can I get rid of COVID-19? No, it's there. We have to accept that it's part of our life. So if I can't change it, what can I do? I can just maybe not think about it. I can maybe think, well, what am I going to do tomorrow? We start to put it down into little bite-sized chunks of what we're going to be doing. Start to make our life a little bit more manageable, because that's what we start to do when we talk about mindfulness. We talk about it being present or being in the moment. And for that, what that means is that if we're thinking about something now, we're not thinking about something in 3 or 6 months' time, or 2 months' time, whenever the lockdown ends. But yes, I believe that we're absolutely going to be a slightly changed, but as I say, I think it's going to be a positive thing. I think what we've seen is a lot of people helping each other, a lot of people looking after each other, and I think that's been fantastic. And a lot of people getting out and doing some exercise, runners and cyclists and people and families spending time together. So I think there's a really good thing there. Another question, I find I feel okay, but then I go through really anxious moments. Is there anything I can do to help? Brilliant question. Yes, there's absolutely lots of things you can do to help. As I mentioned before, there's elements of what you can do to clear your mind. Okay, now we start to think of those as coping strategies or coping mechanisms, as I said before. So what do we do if we want to take our mind off something? We can watch television, we can read a book, we can talk to someone, we can phone someone up, we can go onto social media, we can go out for a walk, we can have a nap, we can go and cook some dinner, we can, all of these things are stuff we do every day, but we probably don't think about them. But while we're doing something, we're potentially not thinking about the thing that's causing us upset. I mentioned earlier when people were just starting to come on about what a fantastic weather it is at the moment, and if you are lucky enough to have a garden or an area you can go and sit outside, one of the most beneficial things you can do to help yourself is to get outside, to breathe fresh air, to breathe oxygen, to look at the sky. We are by habit creatures, humans, that want to be outside. We want to, the reason we breathe in oxygen, the reason that vitamin D, which is what we get from sunshine, is so important to our well-being. So get outside, use that hour. I know people say, oh, you can't be more than an hour. If it's an hour and 15 minutes, it doesn't matter. Use it, because at the moment what we're seeing is people's mental health is as important as it is staying well and not catching COVID-19. because we've got to look after our mental health. We've got to look after how we feel and think about ourselves and the world outside. So absolutely get outside, exercise. Exercise, again, produces some of those hormones, but the good ones. And in a level, if everyone's gone for a run or gone for a bike ride or even just done a Joe Wicks workout in the morning, which is not for kids, it's horrible, even adults I know hurt. But do Joe Wicks's exercise, because the after feeling of exercise is what you really want to achieve. That feeling of doing something, that dopamine hit, that rush of adrenaline out of your body. The body's meant to make you feel good. There's a reason why if you smile, you start to feel better. Whether you actually want to smile, your smile is telling your brain that you're happy. So again, the chemical releases in your brain start to make you feel that you're happy. So again, thinking positive, having those nice thoughts, being around people that are positive is a fantastic thing. I talked about talking to people, but it's really important to connect with people. Now, physical distancing doesn't necessarily allow us to connect physically, but stuff like what we're doing now, Zoom calls, shouting over the fence to your neighbour. Thursday nights when we clap for the key workers, is you see around your courtyard maybe or on your street all these other people. These are your neighbours. We had there's 10 people in my court. I live in Bradwell Village, and they're all our neighbours. I've lived here for 10 years. 2 days ago, Saturday, that's right, no, Sunday, we had a little, I'd say party is the wrong word. We all came out, we all brought our chairs out, and we all sat around in a big circle, and we basically shouted at each other. We all brought out a cup of tea, and we just had a conversation. And these are some people that I've not really spoken to for nearly 10 years, but we're finding that community spirit is starting to come back. So it's really important to communicate, and I think that's a really important thing to talk about, because another question that we had is, I really miss human company as I live alone. Is there something I can do so I feel less lonely? Yes, as I said before, try and set up some Zoom calls, try and WhatsApp calls, Facebook Messenger calls, go outside, even on your walk. One of the things that I do every day is I've got a lurcher called Darcy, a dog called Darcy. So I go on a dog walk twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. She hares around for about 25 seconds and then practically falls over and then sleeps for the rest of the day. But every time that I'm out, not only is it lovely to be out with a dog, but everybody I pass, I smile at. Everybody I pass, even though we're passing at quite a distance, everybody I pass, I say good morning to. Occasionally people, because most people are walking past and they don't want to stop, but occasionally someone stops. I'm really well, thank you. That's okay. So if you are at home alone, what I really stress, if you're able to, is to get outside, especially early in the morning. Early in the morning, there's less people around, especially if you're feeling anxious about being around other people. There's less people around. The sunrises at the moment are incredible. Gives you again a nice feel-good feeling about being alive. But more importantly, the people in the morning seem to be quite nice. And I don't know whether they're running or whether they're out with the dogs, but just getting a smile back from someone. So that's what I would suggest if you can, or maybe if there are people in your block, in your flat, just sort of maybe get hold of their mobile numbers, or maybe to get hold of WhatsApp and set up a little WhatsApp group. Say, I'm going shopping today, does anyone want anything? And then you can leave it on the front door in front of their apartment, and they'll pop some money through your door later. So yes, it's really important to connect. It's really important to have that communication. I know Transitions UK mentors are reaching out via WhatsApp, and again, try and set up something every week, because the other important thing to do at the moment is getting some routine into your life, and we'll talk about that in a moment. I'm finding I'm often anxious, but I was before this happened. What can I do about it? listening to me today hopefully will give you a few little hints and tips, but it's not necessarily going to just strip back your anxiety. It's not going to stop you feeling that overwhelming feeling of anxiousness. What you have to start to do is to put, as I talked about coping strategies and coping mechanisms before, is to put some what we call protective measures in. Okay, and what we mean about protective measures is, and I'll if you permit me just to look at my other screen, because I want to read these off because they're really important. So what we talk about is our protective factors around life skills. Okay, and this is what people have got a lot of at the moment. They've got a lot of life. You can do new things. You can do new learning. You can start new friendships. Online. You can start to do some different things, and I'll talk about those in a minute. So what we talk about is self-belief and confidence. So we start to bring our self-worth up, how we feel about ourselves. Start to think positively about what we're doing. Communication and coping skills are two really important ones. As I said before, try and talk to someone. Get a regular meeting every week, every 2 weeks with your mentor, and talk about how you're feeling. We talk about respectful relations. Respectful is really important because you need to feel that you're respected, and you need to respect others in return, because everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's going through the same things. Not what you're personally going through, because I said at the beginning, you're unique. There's only one of you, and you've got to look after yourself. But we share a combined spirit at the moment, and it's really about having that respect for each other. If you see some nasty things on social media, just mute the conversations. Stop following that person. Follow the people, or listen to the people that have respect for you. And then start to really focus on your values and your beliefs. What actually makes you as a person tick? What makes you the person that you are? When we start to look at the bigger picture of how we really can start helping ourselves, there's 6 real big areas. We start talking about exercise. Okay? We start all talking about getting out as much as we can, or even in the garden, or even in your living room doing Joe Wicks in the morning. Try and do as much exercise as you can. Eat healthily. I know it's really difficult, and I know a lot of people at the moment are just planning breakfast to lunch to dinner, but try and eat as healthy as you can, and try and eat regular, and try not to snack too much, because again, what we put in our body actually starts to affect our mind and our physical body. Sleep. I really can't impress how important sleep is. I know you might be a night owl or an early bird, but trying to get 7.5 to 8.5 hours of sleep in whatever window of sleep that you need is really important. Sleep helps to build the body up, and it starts to help build the mind up as well. So we've got exercise, we've got nutrition, healthy eating, and we've got sleep. And then we've got communication, as I said earlier, talking to people. Talking is so important. We hear the thing, a problem shared is a problem halved. Even if you feel anxious about talking to someone, if that person is listening to you, if that person is respectful, then in actual fact you potentially can start to feel better after you've spoken to someone. So we talk about communication and talking. And then we talk about awareness. Okay, awareness is the 5th one, and that's awareness of everything that's going on, but mostly an awareness of how we're feeling. Why am I feeling or thinking the way that I am? What is causing me to think and feel the way that I am? Is there anything I can do about it? If I can't change it, why am I worrying about it? If I can change it, let me change it. If I need some help to change it, who can I get to help me to change it? And then what that will lead to, all of those 5 things, the exercise, the eating healthily, the getting a good night's sleep, the talking to people, communicating people, being aware of you and your surroundings will actually start to build up your self-worth. It will actually start to build up your confidence, because you guys are incredible. You really are. The fact that you're even on this program is incredible, because you want to you want to start looking after yourselves, and you want to start making a real impact and a difference in who you are, but also to help other people. And that's really important, because when you've got that self-worth, when you feel good about yourself, because you should feel amazing with what you've done and achieved so far. When you start to feel good about yourself, it's amazing how other people start to react around you, how other people start to think, oh, there's a change. Oh, wow, I never realized that. So you can actually start to affect the way that other people feel about you. And you can actually maybe have a positive mental impact, a mental health impact on someone else. And it's so important to help other people, especially at this time when people might be going through difficult times themselves, that you actually start to think of other people. Okay, that's pretty much it. I'm nearly at the end of the hour. I did want to leave sort of 5-10 minutes open for questions. Hopefully that was really useful for you. I'm more than happy to do this again. I can go into a lot more detail about anxiety, a lot more detail about stress. So I'll talk to Vanessa and Charlotte, and if you guys do want another session, I'm more than happy to set that up. Or we can talk about something else completely different. So I'm here to support and help you. Is there any questions in the comments that anyone wants to ask? Hoping there's still people out there. If not, I'm going to have to fill. We'll just wait and see if anyone has any questions. The last comment I had was from Catherine, from saying that I was back. I'll just see. Excellent. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I'll just leave. We've got another minute or so. Just seeing if there's any. I'm still here. Thank you so much for doing this today. That's absolutely fine. No problem, Michelle. No problem, Alicia. If there's no questions, I'll finish up the Facebook Live, and I'm going to send round some sheet. Oh, Stephen, thank you. I'll just read the question out. What do you think the most important aspect of how mental health impacts the day-to-day life? What do you think the most important aspect of how mental health impacts the day-to-day life? I really think it's the way that we approach our life, and it's the way that we think about stuff. If you want to minimize the thoughts that are going on, get busy doing stuff. Do stuff that you enjoy. Get out in the garden, plant some flowers. Do something that really starts to engage you, because you're in here 24/7. So you need to make sure that your mental health, your well-being is looked after, and you're the only one that can do that. Obviously there are people that can support that, but you need to build up your own mental health and your own mental strength. So yeah, I'd say getting some routine, getting up at the right time, getting up at the same time each day, making your bed, going and have a shower, getting yourself prepared for the day, I think is really important. So hopefully that answered your question, Stephen. My pleasure, Sarah. And thank you for listening. Okay, I'm gonna end the session now. If anyone's got any questions they want to ask offline, if you just get hold of Charlotte and or Vanessa, and they can send them over to me, and I'll answer them and send them back. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and it's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope to see some of you soon. Okay. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye bye.